The Hidden Mind. Introduction. You are not as alone in your thoughts as you believe. There is something beneath you, moving like a current beneath still waters, silent but ever present. It is not your enemy, nor yet your friend. But it knows your name. It knows your fears, your longings, your secret beliefs. It has shaped your relationships. It has chosen your path. And still, you've barely met it. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." It's a truth that pierces through illusion like lightning through the dark, because what we don't understand we tend to suffer, and what we don't see we call destiny. But what if destiny is not something that happens to you, but something that has been echoing from within you all along? What if your life is not just the result of random forces, broken luck, or divine interference, but the direct reflection of your inner architecture, a hidden blueprint drawn by unconscious impressions, memories, and energies you've never questioned? This audiobook is a journey into that hidden realm. We won't travel outward. We'll go inward, into the depths of your subconscious, your unspoken wounds, the dreams you left behind, and the patterns that have followed you like shadows in sunlight. This is not just psychology. This is metaphysics. This is the science of the soul, the art of understanding how the unseen creates the seen, how your inner vibration sculpts the landscape of your world. Because your beliefs have shape, your thoughts have weight, your feelings ripple into reality like stones thrown into the fabric of time. You've been taught to chase, to fix, to control, to run, to strive. But what if none of that is needed? What if the only true escape is to turn and face what lives within? There is a force in you that has written your story behind the curtain. It has repeated certain chapters until you notice. It has placed signs in your path and people in your life, not to hurt you, but to wake you, not to punish you, but to remind you of your own design. Because in truth, you are not broken. You are not lost. You are not cursed. You are simply unaware of your own architecture. And so in this sacred hour and a half, we will walk together through the forgotten hallways of the psyche, the sacred geometry of consciousness, and the spiritual mechanics of inner transformation. You will learn to recognize your inner scripts, to observe them, to heal them, to rewrite them. You will begin to see how your soul has always been nudging you toward remembrance, and how your subconscious, once feared, can become your most faithful ally. You are the dreamer. But to awaken, you must first meet the part of you that's been dreaming. And when you do, when the unconscious becomes conscious, you will no longer call it fate. You will call it freedom. Welcome to the hidden hand. Welcome to the turning of the key. Welcome to yourself. Chapter 1. The Architecture of the Mind. The journey inward begins with a map, not a map of places, but of spaces, inner spaces, subtle regions of mind, each vibrating at a different frequency, each holding a piece of the whole that you call you. We were never taught this map in school. No one showed us how thought becomes form, how emotions become reality, or how the invisible creates the visible. And yet, every ancient teaching, every esoteric philosophy, and every mystic who has walked beyond the veil has said the same thing. If you wish to change your life, you must first understand the structure of your own mind. The human mind is not a single layer. It is a layered temple, a trinity, if you will. There is the conscious mind, the part you believe is you, the thinker, the decision-maker, the voice you hear narrating your day. It believes itself to be in control, but in truth, it governs very little. It is but the tip of the iceberg, the sunlight dancing on the surface of a vast ocean. Beneath it lies the subconscious, immense, ancient, and immeasurably powerful. It stores every memory you have ever lived, every emotional imprint, every belief you've absorbed since the moment you took your first breath. It does not reason or question. It accepts, it records, and most importantly, it executes. Like a faithful servant or a loyal computer, it follows the programs it has been given, even if those programs are outdated, false, or destructive. If your subconscious has been trained to believe that love is dangerous, that money is scarce, or that you are unworthy, it will create experiences to confirm those beliefs again and again until the program is rewritten. And above both, in a realm more subtle and divine, exists the superconscious. This is not just a higher intellect. It is the voice of your soul, the wisdom of your essence, the part of you that remembers what your conscious mind has forgotten. The superconscious sees the whole picture. It knows why you are here. It carries the divine blueprint of your being. While your conscious mind argues and your subconscious reacts, the superconscious waits, gently nudging you through intuition, synchronicity, and sacred discomfort. It does not shout, but when you are still enough, you can hear its whisper. Most people live their entire lives in the first layer. They navigate the world thinking they are making choices, unaware that those choices are shaped by invisible patterns embedded deep within their psyche, and so they repeat. The same relationships, the same financial struggles, the same emotional wounds. They believe they are cursed or unlucky or victims of fate. But they are simply unaware of the machinery that runs their life from the shadows. Metaphysics teaches us that the mind is not just a function of the brain. It is an energetic structure, a field of consciousness. Thought is vibration. Emotion is vibration. Belief is vibration. And all vibration, when sustained, becomes matter. It solidifies. It draws into your life the people, places, and events that match its frequency. What you hold in the subconscious radiates outward, forming the geometry of your lived experience. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. What you are, beneath the masks and words, is the sum of what you hold in your subconscious. This is why transformation must begin from within, not with effort or force, but with awareness. The ancients knew this. The Egyptians spoke of the ka and the ba, the energetic aspects of the self that existed beyond flesh and logic. Hermeticists called the mind all, teaching that everything begins in thought. Mystics of every tradition, from the Upanishads to the Gnostic Gospels, echoed the same secret. To master your world, you must master the mind beneath your mind. But this mastery is not about control. It is about communion. It is about listening, becoming quiet enough to notice the patterns you inherited, becoming honest enough to admit the fears you buried, becoming brave enough to question the stories you've always told yourself. Because the subconscious is not your enemy. It is not trying to sabotage you. It is simply doing what it was taught. It is repeating what it believes keeps you safe. And unless you intervene, gently, consciously, it will keep building your reality from yesterday's bricks. When Jung spoke of the unconscious directing your life, he was speaking of this silent architect, the force beneath the surface. You cannot see it, but you feel its consequences. When you finally recognize its presence and shine the light of consciousness upon its programs, something miraculous happens. The structure begins to shift. The child who was once afraid to be seen can learn to speak. The adult who sabotages love can learn to receive. The seeker who has wandered through chaos can come home to peace. Not because something outside changed, but because something inside became known. And so, the path begins not with action, but with attention, not with striving, but with seeing. For once you begin to understand the architecture of your mind, you no longer walk through life blindfolded. You begin to design. You begin to co-create. You begin to awaken. And when that awakening comes, when you stand at the center of your inner temple with eyes wide open, you will realize something astonishing, that the one who shaped your destiny from the shadows was always you. Chapter 2. The Shadow and the Mirror. There comes a moment in every seeker's path where light is not enough. Illumination reveals, yes, but what it reveals can unsettle. For within every soul lives a shadow, a presence made not of evil, but of exile. The parts of yourself you were taught to hide, the memories you buried because they were too painful, the emotions you judged too dark, too ugly, too dangerous to be allowed into the light of day. But no part of you ever disappears. What is repressed does not dissolve. It descends into the unconscious, into the hidden chamber of the mind. And there it waits. Carl Jung called it the shadow, not because it is wicked, but because it is unseen. It is you that you do not wish to face. And yet metaphysically this shadow holds immense creative power. It is charged with emotional energy. And energy, especially when unacknowledged, must find expression. What is not expressed consciously is projected externally. In other words, what you do not face within, you will meet without. Have you ever wondered why you keep attracting the same type of person again and again? Why do certain emotions explode in you without warning? Why do specific words, glances, or situations provoke reactions far greater than the moment seems to warrant? That is your shadow, speaking through the language of life. It places a mirror before you, not to shame you, but to show you what you have yet to see. The universe is intelligent and it is kind. It does not punish, it teaches. Through repetition, it invites awareness. Through discomfort, it invites depth. Your reality becomes a mirror, not of who you pretend to be, but of what you truly hold. And the mirror is mercilessly accurate. This is not cruelty, it is grace. You see, the soul longs for wholeness, not perfection, but integration. And wholeness cannot exist while pieces of you remain abandoned in the dark. The shadow cannot be transcended by avoiding it, nor can it be destroyed. It must be embraced, understood, and reclaimed. Only then can its energy be transmuted into wisdom, into presence, into creative power. In metaphysical terms, the shadow is a frequency. It is a dense vibration, often born of trauma, guilt, or fear. If left unexamined, this vibration will radiate through your aura and attract life experiences that match it. Partners who betray, work that drains, cycles of self-sabotage that feel like fate. But they are not fated. They are feedback. And so the question is not whether you have a shadow. You do. We all do. The question is whether you have the courage to meet it, not with judgment, but with presence. To ask, what have I been running from? What parts of myself have I disowned? What am I unwilling to feel? This is not merely emotional work. It is spiritual. Every time you reclaim a part of your shadow, you retrieve a fragment of your own divinity. The soul is not one-sided. It is not just light. It is everything. And when you embrace the totality of your being, you become magnetic, whole, and deeply aligned. You will find that many of your wounds are not personal. They are ancestral. They are collective, passed down through lineages, cultures, lifetimes. But they have landed in you for a reason. You are the one chosen to end the cycle, to feel what others could not, to forgive where others would blame, to stand where others fell. This is the alchemy of the shadow, turning pain into power, fear into love, exile into embodiment. It is not easy work, but it is sacred. And the beauty is this. When you begin to do this work, your reality shifts dramatically. The people you once attracted no longer feel aligned. The chaos you once endured begins to dissolve. You no longer feel like a victim of patterns you don't understand, because now you do. You see clearly. And what you see, you can transform. You begin to realize that your greatest enemy was not life, nor luck, nor others. It was your own unawareness. And in that awareness, freedom begins. This chapter is not about fixing yourself. It is about remembering yourself. Your wholeness is not something to achieve. It is something to return to. But to return, you must be willing to walk through the forgotten corridors of your psyche and light a candle in every room you once abandoned. There is power in your shadow, waiting for you to claim it. There is wisdom in your wounds, waiting for you to hear it. And there is light even in your darkest thoughts, if you dare to look deeply enough. So stand before the mirror, brave soul. Let your reflection speak. Let your reactions teach you. Let your life be the sacred feedback it was always meant to be. For when you meet your shadow, you do not find a monster. You find a doorway, and on the other side of that door is the self you were always meant to become. Chapter 3. Destiny or Programming. What we call destiny is often nothing more than repetition, a loop hidden beneath the surface of awareness, playing the same melody so subtly and so consistently that we mistake it for the song of fate. But when you begin to listen carefully, when you sit with yourself long enough to hear what the silence has to say, you may come to a startling realization that many of the circumstances you face did not arise from divine will, but from unconscious memory. We are taught to believe that our lives are shaped from the outside in, that society, genetics, fortune, or divine intervention dictate what happens to us. Rarely are we encouraged to look inward and ask, what patterns am I repeating? What programming did I inherit? What is operating in me that I did not choose but accepted? To understand the idea of unconscious programming, you must recognize that you came into this life not as a blank slate, but as a field already vibrating with information. You absorb more in the first 7 years of life than in any other stage, energetically, emotionally, and neurologically. Your subconscious, wide open and impressionable, recorded every glance, every word, every emotional frequency in your environment. You didn't need to be told how to feel about love, money, safety, or success. You learned it by watching, you learned it by being, and what you learned became law. Not a universal law, but personal law, the unspoken rules your subconscious began to live by. I must please others to be safe. Love means pain. I'm only valuable when I succeed. If I express myself, I'll be rejected. These beliefs were not chosen, they were inherited, and once installed, they began to shape the field around you. This is where metaphysics deepens the conversation. Thought is not just internal, it is causal. Belief is not merely psychological, it is magnetic. Your subconscious beliefs emit a frequency that becomes the architecture of your life. You walk into relationships vibrating with the energy of abandonment, and you attract someone who fulfills it. You carry the subconscious imprint of unworthiness, and you sabotage opportunities before they bear fruit. You think it's fate, but it is programming. This programming comes not only from childhood, but from your lineage. Ancestral trauma is real. Emotional energy, belief systems, and even unresolved karmic themes can be passed down like heirlooms, hidden, unspoken, but undeniably active. You may be living out fears that are not yours. You may be trying to heal wounds that didn't begin with you. And still, they are yours to transform. In metaphysical terms, energy seeks resolution. Unfinished emotional patterns, grief, fear, rage, carry a charge that wants to be discharged. That charge does not die when ignored. It waits, and it finds expression in you, through you, until you bring it to awareness. Your life is not random, it is intelligent. And that intelligence is often trying to resolve what has gone unhealed across generations. But here is the miracle. Awareness interrupts the pattern. The moment you recognize a loop, it begins to lose its power. The moment you name a belief, you separate from it. The moment you understand the origin of your pain, you stop confusing it with your identity. This is where the idea of destiny becomes sacred again, not as a script written in stone, but as a living potential waiting for you to become conscious enough to choose it. Real destiny is not the repetition of the past, it is the revelation of your highest frequency. It is the future your soul wrote before you forgot. It is the path of truth that can only emerge once falsehoods have been cleared. Destiny is not something that happens to you. It is something that flows from you once the programming no longer blocks its way. To step into destiny is not to force life into a specific shape. It is to align with the version of yourself that is already whole, already wise, already luminous. This version of you does not react out of fear. It responds with clarity. It does not repeat cycles, it initiates transformation. And it is already present within you, beneath the noise, beneath the scripts, beneath the survival mechanisms that once kept you small. You don't need to destroy your programming. You only need to see it. It cannot survive your awareness. The light of presence dissolves illusion faster than any fight ever could. So the next time you find yourself in a familiar situation with familiar pain, ask yourself gently, is this destiny or is this a program? And in that moment of honesty, you give yourself the power to choose again. This is the turning point between living as a victim of unconscious momentum or as a conscious co-creator of your reality. One leads to cycles, the other leads to freedom. And freedom, dear soul, is your true birthright. Chapter 4. The Veil of Forgetting. You were not born broken. You were born luminous, radiant with divine memory, steeped in cosmic intelligence, infused with purpose. And yet, like all souls who enter this dimension, you passed through a veil, a thinning of remembrance, a gentle forgetting. This was not a mistake, it was part of the design. To truly awaken, one must first fall asleep. The metaphysical traditions of the world speak of this veil. The Egyptians called it the amnesia of the Nile, the crossing over from eternal soulhood into the density of physical form. The Vedantic texts call this Maya, the illusion of separation and form. In Gnostic writings, it is the forgetting of the pleroma, the descent from divine fullness into the fragmented world of duality. Even in modern metaphysical teachings, such as those of Dolores Cannon, we find the same echo. Souls choosing to incarnate on earth must forget who they are in order to remember from within. This is the sacred challenge of incarnation, to remember the infinite while appearing finite. At the moment of your birth, you did not merely enter a body, you entered a story. That story came with rules, labels, and expectations. You were given a name, a language, a gender, a nationality, and a religion. You were wrapped in meaning before you even had the chance to question it. And all of this, every word, every look, every touch, began shaping the architecture of your subconscious. The soul's voice, once clear and luminous, grew faint. In its place came the voice of the world. But the soul does not die. It waits, silently, patiently, whispering through dreams, through longings, through strange synchronicities that seem to break the script. It speaks in the spaces between thoughts, in the pull toward beauty, in the ache for something more, in the sudden feeling that you've done this before, because you have. This veil of forgetting is not punishment, it is context. It gives weight to your choices, meaning to your awakenings. A light remembered is powerful, but a light rediscovered is transformative. For once you realize that you've been asleep, you gain the power not just to wake up, but to live consciously from that moment forward. And this waking process begins when you question, when you stop assuming that the way things are is the way they must be, when you feel the dissonance between the life you live and the life your soul yearns for. That tension, painful as it is sacred. It is the crack in the veil. So many feel this pull but do not understand it. They think something is wrong with them. They think they are depressed or lost or broken. But in truth, they are remembering. They are feeling the weight of the false self beginning to crumble, the ego, the personality, the story. These constructs are not evil, but they are temporary. They were built to navigate the world. The problem comes when we forget that we are the builders. The veil does not fall all at once. It lifts in layers, through suffering, through love, through solitude, through wonder. You may begin to notice synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that feel like the universe is speaking directly to you. You may find certain numbers repeating, certain themes echoing, certain people arriving at just the right moment. You may begin to feel a presence within you that is both ancient and familiar. This is not fantasy. This is your awakening to the reality beneath the illusion. Metaphysically, your subconscious is the veil. It holds all your beliefs about who you think you are. And until you examine those beliefs, you remain within them, like a dreamer unaware that they are dreaming. But the moment you begin to observe your mind, to question your automatic thoughts, to feel your buried emotions, you begin to part the curtain. You begin to meet yourself. This meeting is not always comfortable. You may grieve for the years spent asleep. You may rage at the systems that kept you blind. You may fear the vastness of who you truly are. And that is okay. Awakening is not always gentle, but it is real. And reality, once tasted, cannot be forgotten again. So how do you remember? You remember by slowing down, by listening inwardly, by honoring your intuition, even when it makes no logical sense. You remember by following your curiosity, by creating space for stillness, by unlearning the noise. You remember by loving the parts of yourself that were never loved before. You remember by allowing the divine to speak through your daily life, through nature, through art, through silence. You remember by trusting that what you seek is also seeking you. And perhaps most importantly, you remember by recognizing that you chose this. You chose to come here, to forget, so that the act of remembering would become a sacred journey, a process of self-realization that echoes far beyond this lifetime. Because once you remember who you are, you don't just free yourself. You become a mirror for others. You become a frequency of remembrance in a world asleep. You become a living reminder that the veil can be lifted, that destiny can be rewritten, and that beneath every mask, every story, every wound, there is only light waiting to be remembered. Chapter 5. Awakening the Observer. There is a moment, subtle and sacred, when something in you stops reacting and begins watching. The chaos is still there. The fear may still arise. The old thought still whispers its familiar lines. But something has changed. You are no longer inside the thought. You are watching it. You are no longer drowning in the wave. You are the shore it crashes against. This moment, simple as it seems, marks a profound turning in your inner evolution. It is the awakening of the observer, and with it comes the first taste of true freedom. For most of your life, you have lived with your mind. Every thought that arose seemed to be you. Every feeling that passed through seemed to define you. But what if that voice in your head is not your essence, but just an echo? What if your emotions are not who you are, but simply energies moving through your field? This is the great illusion of the unconscious life, the identification with the contents of the mind. But the metaphysical truth is clear. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them. You are not the storm, you are the sky, and the sky is never broken by the weather that passes through. When the observer awakens, the unconscious begins to dissolve, not because it is being destroyed, but because it is being seen. Awareness is not passive, it is transformational. To observe a pattern is to expose it to light, and darkness, when met with light, cannot remain. This is the essence of inner alchemy, not the suppression of shadow, but the conscious transmutation of it. What once ruled you begins to lose its grip. You catch yourself before you lash out. You pause before the old fear hijacks your breath. You notice the impulse to self-sabotage, and instead of obeying it, you hold it with curiosity. This moment of pause is where transformation begins. It is the crack in the program. The ancient Hermeticists called this the principle of mental transmutation, the art of changing one state of mind into another through the conscious application of will and understanding. It is not about pretending you don't feel something. It is about meeting the feeling so deeply that it begins to shift. It is about standing in your own internal storm and saying, I see you, and I choose differently. But awareness alone is not always easy. You must cultivate it. You must create space for it. This is why the mystics withdrew into silence, why the sages sat in caves, and why the modern seeker finds refuge in meditation, breathwork, and stillness. Because in the stillness, the noise of the subconscious becomes audible. In the stillness, you begin to hear the stories you've been telling yourself. And once you hear them, you can begin to question them. And questioning is sacred. It is not an act of doubt, it is an act of reverence. To ask yourself, is this thought true? Is this belief mine? Is this fear real? It is to begin peeling away the layers of illusion. Slowly, gently, you return to yourself. Not the self that was shaped by pain, but the self that was always whole. Many people fear this process. They think that if they stop reacting, they will become passive. But the opposite is true. When you stop reacting unconsciously, you begin responding consciously. And that is where your power lives. The space between stimulus and response is where your soul speaks. It is where your higher wisdom emerges. It is where you become the master of your vibration. There is no enlightenment without observation. You cannot change what you do not see, and you cannot see what you are unwilling to face. But when you become the witness, compassionate, curious, non-attached, you gain access to a dimension of self untouched by trauma, unbound by belief, and rooted in truth. This witness is not cold. It is not distant. It is the quiet flame of your eternal self, watching patiently as the story unfolds, always ready to remind you that you are not the role. You are the awareness that chose it. You are not the wound. You are the healer behind it. You are not the limitation. You are the one who can transcend it. As this awareness deepens, something remarkable happens. Your external world begins to shift. The people who once triggered you no longer carry the same charge. The situations that once pulled you into despair begin to lose their gravity. You become grounded, centered, luminous from within. Not because the world has changed, but because you have remembered your place in it. You no longer see yourself as a victim of life's circumstances. You see yourself as the one who holds the pen. And though you cannot control every event, you can always choose your state of being. That choice, subtle as it may seem, is a revolution. It is the breaking of the spell. It is the reclaiming of the throne. So breathe, notice, witness your own experience as if watching a sacred play unfold. Let each thought arise and dissolve without judgment. Let each emotion move through you like a wave that knows its way to shore. And when the old stories come knocking, smile gently. You know them well, but you are no longer their character. You are the observer. You are the space in which all things happen, but to which none of them cling. And in that space, you are free. Chapter 6. Reprogramming the Subconscious, Becoming the Author of Your Life. There comes a time, once the veil has been lifted and the observer awakened, when you begin to feel something you may not have known you were missing: agency. Not the illusion of control born from fear, but the gentle knowing that you are not at the mercy of your programming. You are its author. And though the early chapters of your life may have been written in unconscious ink, the pen is now in your hand. But how do you rewrite a program etched deep into your subconscious? How do you shift the emotional and energetic blueprints laid down in childhood, reinforced by repetition and sanctified by suffering? Not by willpower alone, not by force, but by alignment, by alignment, by imprinting new truths so clearly, so repeatedly, and so vibrationally that your subconscious begins to believe them. The subconscious does not respond to logic. It responds to frequency. It is shaped not by what you say once, but by what you feel often. This is why affirmations spoken with doubt do not work, but a single imagined moment soaked in emotion can rewrite an entire belief. The subconscious is like rich soil. Whatever seed you plant, if nourished consistently, will grow. If you water fear, you harvest limitation. If you feed love, trust, and vision, you birth a new reality. Reprogramming begins with clarity. What do you actually believe about yourself? Not what you say, but what your life reveals. If you struggle to receive, you may hold a belief that you are unworthy. If you self-sabotage success, you may believe it's unsafe to shine. If you feel endlessly abandoned, you may carry the wound of invisibility. None of this is your fault, but it is your inheritance to transmute. So you begin gently. You speak new truths, not once, but daily. Not to convince the mind, but to saturate the field. You affirm, not because the words are magic, but because you are. Because your voice, when aligned with your soul, is a creative force. You say, I am safe now. I am allowed to receive. My past does not define me. I am worthy of joy without guilt. I am the embodiment of peace. And you do not just say them. You feel them, you see them. You imagine them as if they were already true. Because to the subconscious, imagination is reality. It does not know the difference between what is real and what is vividly imagined. When you visualize a new version of yourself, living, loving, creating from wholeness, you are not fantasizing. You are installing a new code into the matrix of your being. Neville Goddard taught this with crystalline precision. He said to live in the end, to feel now the reality you wish to create, as if it were already yours, and in doing so, you call it into form, not through force, but through vibration. You become the frequency of what you desire. And what matches that frequency is drawn to you, not by chance, but by law. The law of assumption, the law of vibration, the law of cause and effect. These are not just teachings, They are reflections of how consciousness operates in matter. You are a transmitter, you are a receiver, and you are the one choosing the signal. Every time you choose a higher thought, every time you sit with an uncomfortable feeling and love it anyway, every time you act from the truth of who you are rather than the fear of who you were, you are rewriting the script. And yes, resistance will come. The old program will not vanish overnight. It will knock at the door, dressed in familiar people, triggering situations, tired temptations. But you will be different. You will be awake. You will recognize the pattern not as punishment, but as practice. Each repetition becomes an invitation to choose again, to wire the new belief deeper, to stand firm in the vibration of truth. This process is not linear. It is spiral. You will revisit themes, each time from a higher place. What once broke you may now only shake you. What once shook you may now pass through like a breeze. This is progress, not perfection, but presence. The path of mastery is not about becoming flawless. It is about becoming conscious. With time, something magical begins to happen. The external world responds differently. Opportunities align. People reflect your worth instead of your wounds. Your body feels lighter, your choices clearer, your sense of self rooted in something eternal. Not because the world changed first, but because you did. You are no longer the echo. You are the sound. No longer the victim. You are the vessel. No longer the puppet. You are the poet. And as you continue to reprogram your subconscious with love, with truth and with presence, you will begin to live as the creator you were born to be, not by effort, but by embodiment. The mind that once ruled you becomes the servant of the soul. The patterns that once trapped you become the stepping stones of your ascension. And the life that once felt like fate begins to feel like a choice. A sacred, conscious, beautiful choice. Chapter 7. The Sacred Pattern of Your Life. By now, a quiet truth has likely begun to take root within you, an awareness that your life is not random, that the events you've lived, the people you've loved and lost, the pain you've carried, and the joy you've tasted, none of it is meaningless. There is a sacred pattern beneath it all, a rhythm deeper than coincidence, a choreography so intricate and intelligent that once glimpsed, it transforms how you see everything. This is the mystery of destiny, not as a fixed outcome but as a spiritual architecture. Beneath the surface of your everyday choices lives a blueprint, a path your soul chose before you arrived. And though you forgot it when you crossed the veil, it never forgot you. It speaks in the language of intuition, in the pull toward certain people, in the friction of repeated struggles, in the quiet ache that asks, why this again? You see, your soul is not here merely to experience comfort or linear success. It is here to awaken. And awakening rarely happens in straight lines. It happens through friction, through the resistance of life pressing against the shell of who you think you are, so the truth of who you really are can emerge. The circumstances you resist most may be the very ones designed to reveal your highest self. The betrayals, the losses, the breakdowns, they are not detours, they are doorways. Metaphysically, every soul chooses its curriculum, not in a way that removes free will, but in a way that honors purpose. You are here to remember your power, your divinity, your connection to the all, and so your life will continuously offer you mirrors, relationships that reveal your wounds, situations that test your growth, cycles that challenge you to transcend your unconscious patterns. These are not punishments, they are sacred assignments. Imagine this. Before you incarnated, you stood in the presence of your higher self, reviewing the themes you most needed to explore: trust, self-love, forgiveness, sovereignty, truth. You were shown possible lives, possible timelines. You knew that you would forget. You knew that the work would be hard. And still, you said yes, not out of obligation, but out of deep, soul-level love. Because only in forgetting could you truly remember. Only in falling could you learn to rise. And so the sacred pattern began weaving itself through your life. That parent who wounded you, They were playing a role written into the script for your awakening. That friend who appeared at the perfect moment. They were a soul remembering you across lifetimes. That illness, that failure, that heartbreak. They were not your end. They were your initiation. When you begin to see your life as a sacred pattern instead of a string of random events, everything changes. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin to ask, what is this here to teach me? You stop fighting the flow and start listening to the deeper invitation. You begin to live in alignment with your higher self, not by escaping the world, but by engaging it with new eyes. This perspective does not remove pain, but it brings meaning to it. And meaning is what transforms suffering into evolution. When you understand that your struggles are sculpting your soul, you stop resisting them. You lean in. You participate in the shaping of your destiny, and this participation is what shifts timelines. Even though there is a blueprint, nothing is fixed. Destiny is not a prison, it is a potential, and the more conscious you become, the more you access alternate paths, realities that were not previously available, because your frequency was not yet aligned with them. This is why inner work is sacred, because every belief you heal, every emotion you integrate, every wound you meet with love. These acts ripple through the fabric of reality, shifting your alignment with the sacred pattern. Suddenly, opportunities appear. Synchronicities accelerate. The universe seems to conspire in your favor, but it always was. It was simply waiting for you to match it. You begin to understand that the pattern is not linear. It is holographic. Every moment contains the whole. Every now is a doorway. And at any point, you can choose to step out of repetition and into revelation, not by bypassing your experience, but by entering it fully, with presence and reverence. Even the parts of your life that seem wasted, even the years lost to fear or numbness, they are not beyond redemption. Nothing in your soul's journey is ever truly wasted. The lessons gather in silence, the wisdom is building underground, and when you are ready, it blooms. So breathe. Pause. Look at your life as if it were a sacred text, written not in ink but in experience. What theme keeps returning? What lesson keeps calling? What part of you keeps waiting to be met? The pattern is speaking, not in words, but in rhythms, in echoes, in dreams. And you, now awake, now aware, are no longer just living the pattern, you are beginning to weave it. Chapter 8. Synchronicity and the Divine Mind. There are moments that defy logic, when a thought becomes a song on the radio, when a number keeps repeating, when someone you were just thinking of suddenly calls. You tell yourself it's a coincidence, you laugh it off. But something deeper stirs, a knowing, a soft whisper inside that says, this meant something. You may not be able to explain it, but you feel it. It's like a wink from the universe, a secret only your soul recognizes. This is synchronicity, one of the most mysterious and beautiful ways the divine speaks through the fabric of your life. Carl Jung, who gave this phenomenon a name, understood that there are patterns beneath the surface of things. That is when an inner experience aligns perfectly with an outer event, we are witnessing the invisible intelligence of reality making itself known. Metaphysically, synchronicity is not random. It is the language of the divine mind, the soul's way of guiding you, confirming your path and nudging you toward greater awareness. In truth, the universe is not mute. It is constantly communicating, not with words, but with symbols, rhythms, and reflections. It speaks through dreams, through signs, through sudden encounters, and seemingly impossible timing. And the more conscious you become, the more fluent you grow in this sacred language. Synchronicity emerges most often when you begin aligning with your authentic path. It is not a reward, but a resonance, a confirmation that your inner vibration is matching the deeper order of life. It is proof that you are in tune, not with your ego, but with your essence. And in that alignment, life becomes less of a struggle and more of a conversation. Have you ever felt as though life were orchestrating events just for you? As though invisible hands were moving things into place before you even knew you needed them? This is not imagination. This is the divine mind in motion, a universal intelligence that moves with precision and care beyond what the rational mind can grasp. When your energy shifts, your world responds, not out of magic but out of metaphysical law, because everything is energy. Every thought, every belief, every emotion sends out a frequency, and that frequency draws in experiences that match it. When your inner world is in harmony, the outer world begins to mirror that harmony. When you are fragmented, confused, or out of alignment, the universe responds accordingly, not to punish you, but to reflect your current state of being. A breadcrumb trail that leads you back to your soul is synchronicity. It doesn't exert force. It extends an invitation. Look here, it says, take note of this. Listen carefully. You get more direction the more you pay attention to these minor clues, not because there are more indicators, but because you become more conscious. You begin to coexist with the invisible. You start to have faith that something bigger is walking beside you. But intimacy is necessary in this connection. You need to get better at listening, to reduce speed, to abandon the need to exert control over every result. Synchronicity flourishes in silence and openness. It comes when you start to accept instead of chase, and all you have to do is be there to accept it when it comes. One of the most powerful realizations is this: life is not happening to you, it is responding to you. It listens to your vibration more than your words. It responds to your energy, not your intentions alone. And when your inner alignment becomes true, life bends to meet you. Opportunities flow, people appear, ideas spark. And each of these is a note in a larger symphony you may not yet fully hear. Do not be fooled by how quiet the signs sometimes are. The divine rarely shouts. It whispers through synchronicity, through inner nudges, through the unexplainable feeling that this moment matters. When you learn to trust those moments, even when they defy logic, you step into a kind of dance. You stop trying to force the rhythm. You begin to move with it. This is co-creation, not from force, but from flow. Not from certainty, but from trust. You no longer need to map every step because you know the song, and that song is being sung through every synchronicity, every signpost, every cosmic wink that says, yes, keep going. You are not alone in this journey, not now, not ever. The divine mind moves with you, dreams with you, builds with you, and the more you surrender to its guidance, the more your life becomes a living prayer. So the next time a moment catches your breath, when the timing is too perfect, the message too precise, pause, smile. Acknowledge the presence behind the veil, because in that moment, you are not imagining something magical. You are remembering that everything is connected, that every heartbeat echoes through eternity, and that you are part of something far more intelligent, far more beautiful than the mind alone can ever comprehend. Chapter 9. Healing the Past, Rewriting the Future. To walk the path of awakening is to eventually come face to face with the past, not as something fixed or unchangeable, but as a living memory imprinted in your energy field. You begin to see that the past is not over. It lives on, subtly shaping your choices, your emotions, and your view of what's possible. And until it is seen, felt, and released, it will continue to write the future in the same familiar ink. But here lies the secret. Your past does not have to define your becoming. You are not doomed to repeat what you do not want. Through conscious inner work, through the metaphysical art of transformation, you can heal the patterns of yesterday and begin writing a future that flows not from pain but from truth. The process of healing starts when you give up trying to alter the outside narrative and begin looking inward, asking yourself what you believed as a result of what happened to you rather than what occurred to you. Because the meaning you gave to the experience is what traps you, not the event itself. If you don't analyze it, a single act of abandonment might turn into a lifetime of heart closure. Failure can lead to feelings of inadequacy. The judgment that love is dangerous can develop from a betrayal. Until they feel like the truth, these meanings are ingrained in your mind and woven into who you are. But they are not the truth. They are stories born of pain, and stories can be rewritten. The metaphysical approach to healing is not to suppress, escape, or overwrite the past with false positivity. It is to bring conscious awareness into the wound, to meet it as it is without judgment, to witness the pain you once had to survive, to sit with the child, the teenager, the version of you who didn't have the tools to process what they felt. And in doing so, you allow the energy that has been frozen in time to move again. This is the gift of presence. When you bring love to a moment that once held fear, you shift its vibration. You transmute the density. You release the energetic charge that has kept you tethered to the same cycles. Forgiveness becomes possible, not as a mental act, but as an energetic liberation. And this forgiveness is not just for others. Often, it is for yourself, for not knowing, for repeating patterns, for coping in ways you now see clearly. You were doing the best you could with the consciousness you had, and now you know more. The healing of the past is not about changing what happened. It's about reclaiming the power it once took from you. And when that power returns, you begin to live from a new place. Not a place of defense or reaction, but a place of deep inner sovereignty. This is how you rewrite the future, not by forcing it into a shape, but by clearing the distortion in your field that kept drawing the same experiences. Your future is not a destination, it is an extension of your vibration. When your inner world changes, your outer world must follow. It is the law. Quantum physics and metaphysics agree. Time is not linear. The past, present, and future are all vibrating simultaneously. When you heal the past in the now, you collapse timelines. You shift your trajectory. You open new portals of possibility that were previously inaccessible because your energy was bound to an outdated version of yourself. This is not just a spiritual theory. It is felt. When you do the deep inner work, when you allow grief to move, when you honor your anger without becoming it, when you let your body speak what the mind refused to feel, you experience something remarkable. Lightness, space, a sense that the world looks different, though nothing outside has changed. This is what happens when you release what was never yours to carry. And from this new inner clarity, vision returns. You begin to see beyond survival. You begin to dream again, not from desperation, but from inspiration. You feel drawn not to escape your life, but to create something aligned. Your decisions no longer arise from fear. They come from inner guidance, from resonance, from alignment with your soul's true tone. You are no longer living as a reaction to your past. You are living as a response to your highest self, and that is when the future becomes sacred. Not something you chase, but something you embody. Not a place you arrive at, but a frequency you radiate. Your life becomes a bridge between who you were and who you are, remembering yourself to be. And in every choice, every breath, every moment of conscious awareness, you are reshaping the destiny you once thought was written in stone. Because now it is being written in light and in Chapter 10. The Return of the Magician. There is a moment in the journey when the seeker becomes the knower, when the one who once begged the universe for answers realizes the universe was always within, when the victim transforms into the creator, not through egoic power, but through sacred remembrance. This is the return of the magician, the one who no longer lives by default, but by design, the one who no longer obeys unconscious programming, but speaks directly to the field of reality with intention, clarity, and love. To reclaim your role as the magician is not to perform tricks or manipulate outcomes. It is to understand the true nature of reality and your place within it. It is to recognize that everything you see, touch, and experience is not merely happening to you, it is happening through you. You are the cause behind the form, the mind behind the mirror, the vibration beneath the visible. The magician is the awakened human, anchored in the present moment, but deeply aware of the unseen forces at play. They are not ruled by emotion, but they honor it. They do not suppress desire, but they transmute it. They are not separate from the divine, they embody it. And this embodiment is not loud, it is not performative. It is quiet, intentional, luminous. You have always been this magician. But you forgot. You were trained to see yourself as limited, as broken, as small. You were taught to outsource power to authority, to systems, to outer approval. You were taught to wait for permission, to dim your voice, to suppress your knowing. And so the magician fell asleep. But now, with every layer you've shed, every pattern you've healed, every moment you've met with awareness, you have been returning, piece by piece, flame by flame. The cloak of forgetfulness is falling from your shoulders. You are standing taller, not because of pride, but because you remember the truth. You are the architect of your experience. This is not a metaphor. It is a metaphysical law. When your inner world aligns with clarity, your outer world must respond. Not maybe, not sometimes, always, because the universe is not chaotic, it is responsive. And the magician knows this. The magician does not beg reality to change. They shift their state. They tune their frequency. They hold a vision so clearly in the mind and so deeply in the heart that the field begins to bend around it. But here's the paradox. The true magician is humble. They know the power they wield is not separate from life. It is life. They are not above the world, but in relationship with it. They do not dominate the field, they harmonize with it. They understand that true manifestation is not about forcing outcomes, it's about becoming the energetic match for what you desire. It's about releasing resistance, aligning with love, and trusting the intelligence of the process. This is why inner stillness is essential. The magician does not act from noise. They act from the silence between thoughts. They do not react to the illusion, they respond to the truth. And that truth is felt, not thought. It is intuited, not calculated. It rises not from fear, but from inner alignment with the soul's highest knowing. The return of the magician is the return of the sovereign self, the self that no longer waits to be saved, the self that no longer blames, delays, or hides, the self that takes radical responsibility, not with heaviness, but with reverence. Because taking responsibility for your life is to reclaim your creative essence. It is to say, if I created this, then I can create differently. If my past was shaped by unconscious energy, then my future can be shaped by awakened intention. And so you begin to live differently. You choose words with care, knowing they carry vibration. You treat your thoughts as seeds, knowing they take root. You notice the energy behind your actions, the tone behind your voice, the feeling behind your desire. You walk through the world not blindly but consciously, with the quiet authority of someone who knows that they are never alone. The divine walks with you because it walks as you. You become a magnet, not for things, but for truth. And from that truth all things are added unto you, not because you chased them, but because you remembered you were worthy, because you finally stopped seeking and started being. This is mastery, not perfection, but presence. Not control, but co-creation. And as you stand now at the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming, you feel it rising in you. A stillness, a power, a clarity that cannot be shaken. You are not who you used to be. You are not living the old loop. The old story no longer fits. You've outgrown it. And now your life begins to reflect the inner change. This is the turning point, the place where the inner magician takes the reins, the place where you stop asking for signs and start becoming one, the place where you no longer call it fate because you know it is freedom. And freedom, dear soul, is your natural state. You are the dreamer. You are the witness. You are the creator. You are the light remembering itself. And your time is now. Closing. The dreamer awakens. And so we arrive at the threshold, the end of a journey that is really only the beginning. You have walked with courage through the hidden corridors of your mind. You've felt the echoes of your past, traced the patterns of your life, and stood in the presence of your own becoming. You did not just listen. You remembered. You remembered that you are more than a body, more than a name, more than a product of circumstance. You are awareness itself, a luminous spark of the infinite, walking the earth for a time, sculpting matter with thought and weaving futures with frequency. You have seen now what few dare to see, that your unconscious was never your enemy. It was your map, your teacher. Your sleeping ally is waiting to be awakened. Every loop, every trigger, every repetition, it was your soul's language, calling you back home to yourself. It did not bind you to fate. It offered you the material from which freedom could be born. You have learned that healing is not about becoming someone new, but about returning to the truth of who you always were, beneath the roles, beneath the wounds, beneath the noise. And in that return, something shifted. You no longer move blindly through life. You see now, you feel now, you listen deeply to the whisper beneath the world. You've stepped beyond the illusion that your life is shaped from the outside in. You know now that the field responds to your frequency, that the world is a mirror, not of your surface desires, but of your inner alignment. And so you've begun to choose differently. You no longer beg for change, you become it. You no longer fear your mind, you master it, not with force, but with presence. This is the power of awakening, not a grand performance, but a quiet revolution. A shift so subtle that the world may not notice, but you do. You feel it in your spine, in your breath, in the way life begins to arrange itself around your inner clarity. You begin to trust. Not because everything is easy, but because you know. Know that you are supported. Know that you are guided. Know that the divine is not outside of you but within you, dreaming through you. You are the dreamer. You are the magician. You are the light behind your eyes. And no matter how far you drift, no matter how long you forget, the return is always available. The path is always beneath your feet. The tools are already within your hands. So let this be your reminder. The unconscious no longer needs to rule your life. The old patterns no longer need to repeat. The stories that once defined you can now dissolve into wisdom. And the future you long for is not somewhere out there. It is waiting within your next breath, your next choice, your next act of courage. This audiobook may end here, but the real work, the sacred, beautiful, intimate work of becoming fully conscious has only just begun. Carry this truth with you. Nothing was ever random. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are becoming. And you are not alone. We walk with you. Every awakened heart, every unseen guide, every whisper of truth that lives just beyond the veil. So go, create. Speak your intention into the field. Live as if your frequency matters, because it does. Breathe like you are part of something holy, because you are. And remember, always, you are the hidden hand. You are the silent architect. You are the dream and the one who dreams it. Welcome home.